OpenStack and be part of OpenStack, because from all the topics that we deal with within the IGT Cloud community, when we do the OpenStack event, we feel like we are part of the big international event, big international community of OpenStack that really does a big change in the industry. That the first time we all come together to make a difference, to create a standard will enable us to have freedom of choice between cloud platforms and providers and reduce the cost of cloud computing. So really happy to open, I think it's the 4th OpenStack event that we have in Israel. And in this occasion, I would like, first of all, to thank our sponsors that enable us to do this event here and run this place. Gigaspaces, Ubuntu, Red Hat, and obviously the OpenStack organization itself. So thank you very much. I also want to thank a lot all the committee that made this event happen, especially Nati Shalom here was the chairman of this event and the leader of the agenda. So I want to give applause to Nati Shalom for all the work he did. Shlomo Swidler here, that really contributes a lot and is managing the panels. Samuel Berkovici from Radware, where is he? Here, thank you very much for helping us a lot. Kobe Holzer from LivePerson. Uri Cohen from Gigaspaces. And Sharon Rave Zitman. Sharon is here. Thank you very much, Sharon. Really great job. And today we really have a great program with great speakers, both from abroad and Israel. And you can see in the agenda that you all received the great content in the agenda that we have today with the most advanced things that OpenStack can offer today. 2 or 3 comments about the logistics. First of all, please check your smartphones that it's muted or closed, so we will not be disturbed here. And the 2 other tracks, by the way, that we'll have later on are right behind me and the right side of me, right there. So track number 2 and 3 will be in rooms at that side, in case you're looking at for. So at this point, I would like to give the floor to Nati Shalom to manage this event. Nati.
Hi everyone. So a few words about why we're here today, and I'll get to the important one in a second. So one slide that I kind of picked from the Hong Kong event is the statistic about the OpenStack adoption in enterprises. And as you can see, I think that there are many players, and I think that's kind of distinguished OpenStack from a lot of the other frameworks that you could see listed, is that there are many players that actually adopt OpenStack, whether it's Cisco, HP, IBM, Ubuntu, Red Hat, and so forth. And that is a force that cannot be denied or, I think, changed. It's really a force that cannot fail because there's a lot of companies that bet their success on that. That's, in my view, one of the most important things to distinguish between a success or failure of a technology. And we all seen the hype cycle of technologies, and we all know that even popular technologies can fail. In this case, in my view, this is the most interesting indicator. The other thing that you could see is that in terms of adoption, if you really look at the survey here, it's really in a good trajectory for being the de facto standard for enterprises right now. The other thing that I found interesting is where it stands today, and I took a slide here from an OpenStack survey, and you'll hear more about it from Heidi later on the type of project that people actually fill in the survey itself. So you could see some of the real numbers behind it. The interesting thing is that a lot of people have started OpenStack as a proof of concept, and you could see that there is an interesting conversion between those dev and QA and proof of concept into actual production. And the numbers is growing steadily, and this is just a sample of numbers. I'm sure it doesn't represent the entire universe. There's also an interesting angle here in terms of the level of versions and the adoption of versions. So you could see that the adoption of new releases is actually getting better and better. And that's another interesting indicator there. But the important thing is that it's real. It's not just a framework for developing stuff. It's actually something that serves big companies. You'll hear more about it in a second. This is the most important slide, and I'm not going to do too much talk today, mostly moderating panels and so. Israel is known as the startup nation. We have a lot of startup companies. And the reasons why OpenStack, in my view, is important for you and for most of the audience here is because if you really look at the importance of OpenStack, it's really, in my view, an innovation accelerator. Beyond the fact that it's a standard de facto and the entire industry is following it, it's really an innovation accelerator. And if we want to be continue to be a startup nation, we need to be on that wagon. And that's the most important thing. And the reason why it's an accelerator, take a technology, for example, even Linux container or the network, those technology existed for years. But it was very hard, and for every new disruption, there needs to be some level of critical mass to succeed. So what really OpenStack provides you is access to the consumers of those technologies. And without OpenStack, think about the network again. Now that I have OpenStack, I can take a new network technology, a new network API, SDN, or whatever, plug it into a framework and an ecosystem, and all of a sudden I got the entire ecosystem using it. Before that, there was a lot of standardization effort and a lot of networking framework and initiatives to deal with that, but it was very hard to cross that critical mass. So in many ways, you could think about OpenStack as an ecosystem that will enable you to accelerate your innovation. And the way you accelerate it is just plug it into OpenStack, and then you had a whole ecosystem that can try and use it without you doing the entire marketing for that. And that's, in my view, the most important thing to understand in OpenStack and why you should invest in that. The other thing that I think is important is there are already interesting disruption that is taking place within OpenStack that is taking beyond the thinking of being the clone of Amazon, if you'd like. Think about the bare metal cloud. Think about the network API capabilities that are in there. All of those type of things hold a lot of potential for disruption and innovation. Just the two of them. And obviously, there is a lot of things that are the combined value, like taking compute and big data together and having that ecosystem to actually integrate technologies that were separate before, or were living in silos before. So again, the important thing, and that's again the most important slide for me, is that it's if we're thinking about Israel as a startup nation, and innovation is key for a startup nation, this is the place to be. And that's the important thing here. Now, a few things to mention, and we're going to have a whole panel about that, is about the Israeli angle and who is actually using it. So last year we had only Kobe Holcher here as a case study, I think. Kobe, are you here? Seen your face, yes? And already today we're going to have a full panel, and the list is actually bigger. Anyone here is already using OpenStack that I didn't list it here? Raise his hand. Yes? From Toga? Right? And who else is here? Yes? Yeah, Mellanox, I know. So there's a bunch of companies that are not listed here that are already using OpenStack, and the list is actually growing. As I said, last year we had to work very hard to find them. This year it's actually becoming much easier, and I'm expecting that next year it will be all over the place. That's kind of the important thing. The other thing that you'll see is that we're trying in the website of OpenStack is to keep track of those case studies so that you'll know them. Shlomo Swidler has done a good job on interviewing people and getting the word out. So if you do have an interesting story, if you're using OpenStack, please approach us and we'll get your story out there. I think it's the entire community would want to hear that and would want to learn from your lessons. So that's also important. So that's your part in the contribution. If you're doing something interesting, approach us. And Shlomo is here to actually put you on record. A few logistics things. You'll notice that in the agenda itself, there are a couple of things. The most important thing is the voting. We have rooms with very different sizes here. One small rooms, the other one is big room like this one, and another one which is medium room. In order that we could balance the talks, I'd like you to actually log into that web page and vote, cast your votes on which session you're actually going to go to. And this will help us to kind of moderate the talks to the right room. So that's just another logistic. Yes? There is an internet. It's called Bezek something something. Just look for Bezek. It doesn't include any password. Bezek. Bezek and some number. The other important note here is we have an open spaces session towards the end. So open spaces session, for those who are not familiar, is a way for us to take advantage of the people in the audience. So I know that there are people in the audience that have interesting things to say, interesting talks, and interesting topics that they want to cover. So this is your chance to suggest them, and we can plug them into the room. Usually it's an open discussion model. So what I would like you to do right now is just think about ideas. So when we'll have that gathering before the open spaces, you could raise your hand, suggest the idea, and we'll get the process started much faster. So that's the other note for today. The last thing is that with the help of Staxo and Florian here, we launched a training for OpenStack for Havana, and we're planning to doing another one in February. This one is actually full, so those training are getting full quite fast. So if you do want to get into your hands dirty and have a 3 days OpenStack training, we're also working together with the IGT and Staxo to actually deliver that in a more frequent way. And with that, I'll end.